Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Great to have you in the conversation. Program is Focal Point, network is AFR Talk. I'd like to get your reactions to the Michael Sam draft situation. 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. Talk about, glad to hear from you, questions, comments you have about that. Especially any reactions you have to comparing what the press did to Tim Thibodeau when he came out and what the press has done to Michael Sam. 888-589-8840 is the number to call. Now, I talked with you some time ago about Russell Moore on this program, and we played some sound bites. I spent 2 segments talking about Russell Moore and his slam on Christian Talk Radio. We talked with Rich Bott of Bott Networks last week at length about a letter that he's written to virtually anybody who's everybody in Christian radio, Christian Talk Radio. And Rich Bott is challenging Russell Moore to apologize for his broad sweeping accusations about Christian Talk Radio and to come forward and to tell us who specifically he is talking about, because we don't know. Janet Mefford thinks maybe Russell Moore was talking about her. Rich Bott thinks he was reacting to something that he heard on one of the Bott Network stations. Here at AFR, we think maybe he was reacting to something that he heard on our network. But the point is, nobody knows because he won't say. Now, this story has now broken containment. That's the thing before we get to the phone, just mention this one thing. This story about Russell Moore and his attack on Christian Talk Radio has broken containment. WND, the old World Net Daily, has got a 3-page story on this on its website, broke yesterday. They quote Janet Mefford in this piece. They quote me in this piece. They quote Rich Bott in this piece. And the heading of their article is "Nuclear Bomb Hits Christian Talk Radio." That's the term that Janet Mefford used to describe what Russell Moore dropped on Christian Talk Radio, like the equivalent of a nuclear bomb. Now, the interesting thing is, and nobody has heard back from Russell Moore. Remember, we asked Rich Bott, have you heard anything from Russell Moore? No, he's not contacted me. Our president reached out several times last fall to Russell Moore. No, not even the courtesy of a return phone call. And now WND, as they poked into this, they tried to contact Russell Moore for comment. They found that he hasn't been in the office all week. And the secretary said he's out with the flu. That may very well be. I'm not going to raise any suspicions there, but the point is he's not available. He's not available to answer any inquiries from the media. And the other thing that WND pointed out is, this is a piece by Leo Homan, is that Russell Moore has pulled down his contact page off of his website. So there's no way for anybody to contact him. He's disabled his contact page, so it looks very much like Russell Moore has gone to ground on this deal. And I've got to believe the only reason you'd pull down your contact page is if you were getting a lot of communication that was critical of what you were doing, and you just decided you didn't want to hear it anymore. So you just hang up the phone, you shut off the tap, you turn off the lights, you close the door, and you pull the covers over your head. And it looks suspiciously like that's what Russell Moore is doing. So we'll see. We're waiting for a response back from him. According to Rich Bott, he's going to be on a secular talk show tomorrow, Eric Erickson's program out of Atlanta. So apparently he's healthy enough and well enough and engaged enough to go on a secular program and talk about the bomb that he dropped on Christian Talk Radio, but not apparently willing to come on one of our programs and talk to us about that. Let's go to the phones, talking about the Michael Sam situation. Let's begin with Thibodeau in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Thibodeau, welcome. What's on your mind?
Welcome, brother.
Yes, go right ahead.
Thank you so much for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I agree with you. I do not agree with the whole Michael Sam situation. He is a parasite to the NFL. His homosexuality is going to scare away the players from tackling him. It is a tactic. I think the NFL should absolutely ban all homosexuals from the NFL because it is not healthy. You are right. It's
interesting, Thibodeau, and I want to get your reaction to this. We were talking this morning in our production meeting about this situation, And I'd forgotten this, so somebody brought it up. You know, back when Magic Johnson was diagnosed with HIV/AIDS, I mean, because it's transmitted through the exchange of bodily fluids. Everybody knows that that's how it's transmitted. So all of a sudden, whether you got saliva, whether you've got blood, all of a sudden the NBA was all over. You got the slightest nick and there was any blood, you had to go and you had to sit until that bleeding stopped, until it was bandaged up, until there was no possibility of the transfer of bodily fluids. And so you wonder what's going to happen now with Michael Sam. What are the rules going to be with regard to getting cuts or injuries when you are on an NFL football field, which has got to happen a lot more than it happens in the NBA. Anyway, Thibodeau, any last thoughts?
Absolutely. You need to mummify them. You need to wrap them up if they want to go out and play. No exposure, wetsuits and bodysuits, if that's what they want to do. But I think it is not safe for the other players, the other heterosexual, Jesus-loving players, not to be accustomed to homosexuals on the NFL. They have worked hard. They have prayed to the Lord to get a chance to play in the NFL. And for someone, a deviant, to stray away from Christ, to accumulate and acquire AIDS and bring it to the NFL, it is unsafe, inhumane, and not Christian.
All right, Thibodeau, listen, I appreciate your call. You know, and it's interesting, there's obviously a health factor here that we're talking about, same one that the NBA confronted. That nobody's talking about that, because I hadn't even thought of it. I haven't heard anybody else talking about the health risk now to other players with whom he's going to come in contact if he's HIV positive, which we don't know. But he's obviously involved in behavior that's the number one risk factor for that. So you got to start taking that into consideration. But here's the other part. You know, we've already seen this with the safety at the Miami Dolphins. I mean, the gay Gestapo will go after anybody who dares to breathe a word of criticism about homosexual behavior. So they're going to be silenced. They will be marginalized. They will be punished. Don Jones has already been fined and sent to a re-education camp like he's in communist China for saying things that were critical of homosexual behavior. All right, let's go to Kenneth, Marshall, Texas. Kenneth, welcome. What's on your mind?
Oh, yeah. Well, this is a can of worms as far as I'm concerned. This is such a bad decision. And I think that it's time for people that believe in Jesus Christ to boycott the NFL because of what they're doing here and because of what they did to the governor in Arizona. That if we keep tolerating this, we're just giving Godspeed to it. If we keep indulging in it, cut it off. We don't need this mess. It's obvious that they do not care what we think, and all we're doing is helping them fulfill their agenda if we keep watching it. And another thing, this is kind of off base, but if we want to hurt the liberal agenda, everybody needs to start boycotting everything they're in. That means the movie industry. When we spend $1, we're helping them elect the people that they want to get in here that are oppressing us. And I'll just hang up and listen.
All right, Kenneth, listen, I appreciate that. And again, you know, the NFL is just turning into something completely different. You're seeing the same thing happen in the NFL that's happening in the military. The military has been turned into this giant social engineering laboratory, trying to get women in combat, homosexuals in the military. Now they're talking about getting transgenders into the military. And it's affecting retention and recruitment and readiness. I mean, the military is suffering for all of this social experimentation. Now the NFL is going through the same thing. They're turning the NFL into a social engineering laboratory, and I think the consequences are going to be very unpredictable. We've already seen Christians are being, I don't know if Don Jones is a Christian or not. He may not be. But remember that secondary member, Chris Culliver of the San Francisco 49ers, 2 years ago, leading up to the Super Bowl, he said, look, he was asked about homosexuality in the locker room, said, nah, none of that business around here. We don't go for that sweet stuff here in the NFL. And he was pilloried for that. He was criticized by his coach. He was criticized by the NFL. He was sent off to sensitivity training. So we've already seen that if you have a view that has any reservations about homosexuality, you better keep that opinion to yourself or the gay Gestapo will come to take you out. All right, let's go to Ronald, Louisville, Texas. Ronald, welcome. Ronald, welcome. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, Brian?
Good. Ronald, how are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, I've been a watcher of football all my life, and this is motivated also by one thing and one thing only, and it goes around, and it always comes back to money. Now, with that being said, this Michael Sam, we had a local sportscaster here in Dallas, and he had a commentary last night, and he was insinuating that the only reason he was picked over and was chosen the 249th player or whatever it was because of him being homosexual. Now, this man, he was projected to maybe not even be drafted.
Uh-huh.
So for anybody like that, even a sports guy, and he had been on Ellen because of one of his other deals, so, it all comes around. It all comes around. But, it's just everywhere you go, and just like your last caller said, I agree with him. If we don't start standing up for our Lord and Savior, and I'm talking to everybody, even if this man from Miami Dolphins, Christian or not, he knows what moral values are.
That's
he
right.
knows what's right and wrong.
Yeah. Well, and that's the big concern that you've got here. And I agree with you, Ronald. I think somehow, and I'm beginning to see, I think Americans are just waking up. They are realizing just kind of the shape that we're in, where people who support, lionize, celebrate, glorify sexual perversity are now running this country. And not only are they running the country, they are determined to punish anybody who will be a voice for sexual normalcy. And that's exactly what we saw yesterday with that secondary member of the Miami Dolphins, punished for merely hinting at what you and I believe is consistent with the revelation of God himself in the scriptures. Focal Point in AFR Talk. We'll be right back after the news. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us.